Thank you for tuning in. Tonight's conversation about autism, supporting siblings both on and off the spectrum, will begin shortly. Thank you for joining tonight's conversation about autism, supporting siblings both on and off the spectrum. We'll begin shortly.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mannheim, and welcome to Conversations About Autism. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Today, we'll be talking about siblings both off and on the autism spectrum. I've invited a facilitator from the sibling support group, and a few different sibling pairs to talk to us tonight. You'll hear some stories from some amazing siblings and their incredible journeys. I want to say there's no one right way to be a sibling other than to try to do your best to love your sibling. You're going to hear from a very unique group of autistic participants who require a very significant level of support and are mostly non-speaking but communicate in other ways, such as picture exchange, mouth words, and sign language. Not all of them could be live tonight, but each are able to participate in their own way. So I'd like to bring the participants on to introduce them to you. Let's see here. Oh, we're missing one. There we go. All of them are here. Excellent. Glad you guys can make it. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves, tell us a little bit about who we are, our siblings, and maybe our favorite food to eat. I'll start off. I'm Jennifer Mannheim, but I'm a nurse practitioner at the Seattle Children's Autism Center, and I too am a sibling. My brother is 2.5 years older than me. He doesn't have a disability, but I can say growing up, he was quite good at giving me a very hard time. I knew exactly how to do it. And I'd say my favorite food is the food I get when I eat at Mama Melina's with two of my very good friends. So now I'm going to pass it on to Annette, if you can tell us about yourself and your sibling through your lens.
Yes. Hi, my name is Annette Blanco. I am 26 years old. I work at Children's Hospital as an internal transporter, and I also work as a caregiver for Elijah, my youngest brother, which is here. Elijah, say hi, Elijah. Say hi. Saying hi. He is 17 and he has autism, and there's a 9-year age difference between the two of us. We also have another brother, Michael, who is 24, and we all live with our parents. Elijah and I like to hang out quite a bit. We have a very strong bond. We sometimes go out for random drives because he loves being in the car and listening to music. He loves music so much. We go out and get bubble tea, and my favorite food is Mexican homemade tamales. And I believe Elijah's favorite food is rice and beans, but he also loves French fries.
Awesome. Well, welcome to both of you. And Elijah, is there anything you want to tell us tonight? Anything you want to share with us? You're just getting excited to be here, I think.
He's looking through his pictures, yeah.
Is he? All right. Well, let us know if we need a pause.
He says no.
All right, no. Okay, excellent. All right. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. David, I've got you next. How about you tell us about yourself and your sister?
My name is David Wright. My sister, Erin, and my mom are visible in another window here. I am in my 50s, so I'm out of the house for a long time. I'm about 13 years older than Erin, so she came late into my life. But I have lots of stories about growing up as an older sibling of an autistic person, and we all managed to get through it. No one's estranged in our family. I'm just in my own house tonight because we live apart. Oh, and my favorite food by far is Italian. I love that the first time I went to Italy, I could walk into absolutely any hole in the wall, dingy, crappy, whatever, and the food was just amazing. I haven't experienced that anywhere else.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, David. And I will say I've never been to Italy, but now my mouth is starting to water the thought of really good Italian food. Mama Molina's is Italian, but I bet it's not as good as what you find in those little.
They're pretty good too. I've been to Mama Molina's in Seattle, and I like them as well.
Excellent. Okay, good to know. Well, Erin, how about you share with us, what is your favorite food?
Can you tell her? You can say it out loud. They can hear you. Tacos. Pizza.
Hot dog.
Hot dogs.
Fries.
Excellent. And what's your favorite restaurant, Erin? Where do you like to go get that?
Taco time.
Taco time. And where else?
Agave.
Agave. Yes.
Excellent. And the other thing I know about you, Erin,
Oops. It stopped.
that I think people would love to know about next spring with your mom and your brother and your nephew. Where is it you guys are headed?
New York.
New York. So awesome. I think it's really cool that you guys all travel together, that you do those things. That's really, really awesome. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, Erin and Anita. Yes, you've done a great job. And Margot, I've got you next. You tell us about yourself and your sister.
Sure. I'm Margot. I'm 22. I'm 2.5 years younger than my sister Audrey. She's 24. I am about to graduate college. I'm here at St. Olaf majoring in theater and history. And I teach theater to kids over the summer. That's kind of my job right now. Audrey is at home in Seattle. Like I said, she's 24. She's older than me. I'm the baby sibling. My favorite food is strawberries. And Audrey's favorite food is pizza or M&Ms, I would guess. Specifically, we go to Spiro's Pizza in Shoreline a lot. They know her by name. And they recognize us when we walk in, and they bring her a cup of water without ice because that's how she likes it.
A cup of butter without ice? Is
Water without ice.
Oh, water. I was like, wow. Awesome. awesome. Thanks, Margot, for joining us here. I know we also have a video of Audrey to share. Maybe we can pull it up now and see Audrey.
Can you say hi? Yeah, that's for Margot. Hi for Margot. Yeah, I understand. Next week, what do you want for lunch with Mom? You want a restaurant? Which one? The pizza restaurant? And a cookie for dessert? Milano cookie? Okay, that's a good idea. Can I have a hug? Okay, good.
I'm so glad she could participate by video and be a part of it. That is really great. Thanks. All right, so now we've got Ursula. How about you tell us about yourself and your role at Seattle Children's, and then also your favorite food?
Yes. Yeah. My name is Ursula, and I wear a couple different hats at Seattle Children's. Three categories, I would say. My main role at the hospital for the last 19 years has been in the child life department in the playroom, just supervising volunteers. If any of you guys know David Eaton, he was one of my volunteers way back when he was just in nursing school. And so supporting volunteers with bedside play and running programming in the playroom. And then I also help coordinate Stanley STAM Camp, which is a week-long summer camp for kids with medical conditions. And finally, I am a facilitator for SibShops, which is a play-based support group for kids who have brothers and sisters with some sort of disability, medical condition, or special need. Oh, and my favorite food, though, everyone has won me over with their, what they shared is, I'd say sushi and or anything that I get to share with friends.
That sounds so awesome. Excellent. I'm so glad all of you could join us here tonight. And I will say, especially to all of our participants, if they're feeling like they need to get up and move around, it's totally fine. We're glad that whatever we get, we're happy to have. So thank you all for being here and participating in this. I know our people listening at home will enjoy hearing your stories. But I think first, I'm going to start off the conversation. I'd like for Ursula, for you to tell us a little bit more about SibShops, the program that you facilitate at Children's. Can you tell us a little more?
Yes. So SibShops, I believe, has been around, I want to say 30 years now, give or take 1 or 2 years. And it was created by a gentleman named Don Myers. And it was a partnership between Seattle Children's and UW EEU. And Margot, you probably remember Don Myers, just a really, really dynamic character. His background was in special education, and but put together this curriculum and started at Seattle Children's, and then started to spread the word and connect with other organizations. And it went national, and now it's international. He retired probably about 5 to 6 years ago, and now it's run by Emily Holt. But there are SibShops all over Washington State and all over the country. And the great thing about SibShops, it is he provided a basic model of what it is, and the kind of the key things is that that's all about being fun and making connections. It's therapeutic, but it's not therapy, and it's not a class. But with that baseline, really there's a lot of different models that exist out there. So at Seattle Children's, our model is we meet 5 times a year. We have a group of younger kids that are from 6 to 9, and a group of older kids from 10 to 14. And we have had a period of time of having a teen group as well, though that is not active right now. And it runs through the school year, and they alternate our younger group and our older group. And we actually host 2 sessions each of those offerings. Our morning group specializes in families who have a child with a developmental disability. And just by chance, I would say the majority of that group have a child with autism. And then the afternoon group, that's actually the one that I've been facilitating for the last 18 years, as a mixed group, where it's families who have a child with medical conditions and or developmental disability. And really, it's all about having a lot of fun and sneaking in some opportunities to talk about our experiences. Really, like Margot will remember this. If you were to ask a Sib shopper what their favorite thing about Sibshops is they would yell snack very loudly. But I promise you, we do far more things than just have snack. We usually have some sort of theme of the session, which would include a craft and then some games around that theme. And then, like as I said, we kind of sneak in 2 different discussion opportunities that just start with even just sharing and naming our sibling and what supports they need, and if their disability has a name. And then often we do another deeper dive into a theme, just asking questions. But it's like as I say, we kind of try to sneak things in with different games and things like that. I think that covers it. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So it's really a play-based type of group where kids just to kind of hang out and be around other siblings.
Exactly. Like as I want to stress, it's really about those having something that's just for you and having the opportunity to make connections with others that you don't even have to. I mean, there's a lot of just unsaid understanding and knowing that you're not alone in your experiences.
That is so great. Well, I'm going to have flash up we have a little slide I made that has the Sibshop's website and spells it out. I don't know if Linnea, if you can share that one on there, but I also want, yes, thank you. Yeah, so it's there. If you want to find out more about it, check that out. If you Google Sibshops or click on the URL or scan the URL, you can find that there. And wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that slide. And I want to invite any of our guests who are watching live, if you have any questions for Ursula or any of our other participants as they're talking tonight, please do put that in the chat. And we can, if we've got time, we'll ask our participants live those questions. But Ursula, I was hoping maybe in your years in experience of facilitating those groups, if you want to share just some common themes that you've noticed that happen amongst the kids.
Yeah, as I had mentioned in the introduction, I think one of the greatest themes is just that participants really appreciate that this is an opportunity just for them, that this isn't something, because I think siblings often spend so much time either traveling to appointments, being at appointments, or having people come into their home and things like that, that it's really special for them to have something that they own. Another theme I would say is that I think to get the most out of it, and I think we probably need to work with our materials a little bit too to stress this, to get the most out of it is it's a long time game. We have many families that start as 6 and 7 year olds and they will continue until they are 14. And I would say it's just amazing growth to even see from year 1 to year 2, but really seeing what they're expressing as 6 and 7 year olds to then what the 14-year-old version of that is. But I do know that we have a lot of families that just dabble with it and they just want to see what it's all about and come once. And because it isn't a class, you might not have many takeaways other than your child really enjoyed snack. But having that opportunity to be part of this club for a good stretch of time, I really think is just an amazing experience. And we actually, sorry, my dogs are just joining me. I actually just heard from a participant that was probably a little bit older than Margot, who was probably 10 years ago, she graduated and was reminiscing about Sibshop. So it is something that sticks with people for a long time. The other thing that when Jennifer and I had a chance to connect a little bit before, and I had mentioned a general theme of just seeing some of our younger kids not necessarily having language to describe their sibling who has autism. And that's been kind of a newer trend that I've seen with my kids or our participants. And I just don't know if that's because language around autism has changed and also just the kids who are included in that diagnosis. But after I spoke with Jennifer, I also realized that we had lost 2 years of being able to be in person. So we have some families that are finding Sibshops for the very, very first time. And prior to the pandemic, it was very normal for new participants to not necessarily have language, but then over time, by hearing the stories of others, that language does develop. I'm trying to think of, I think another just general thing that I just want to throw out there is around language, but also kids sometimes just not feeling like they don't quite have the information to describe, or they say there's a lot of kind of like, oh, my parents don't really tell me much, or I don't really understand what's going on. And we try to kind of prod and get a little bit of information, but I think it just kind of, the takeaways I see that there's some opportunities for conversations in the home, or just check-ins. I don't even think they have to be conversations, but just check-ins to kind of see where. And again, kids have different styles. Like some kids appreciate a lot of information, and other kids maybe don't want to know.
Fair enough. Ursula, thanks for sharing that. And I love that your dog was wanting to get in on the action
Yes,
too.
very
You're
much.
having enough fun that he's like, wait, what's going on?
Yes.
Or she. Excellent. Thank you, Ursula. And as you mentioned, Margot had participated in SibShops. And so, Margot, I'm wondering, since you've done that, mind you, it was a long time ago, if anything that Ursula said like stands out to you and you remember, or what do you remember from your time in that kind of setting?
Yeah, I did Sibshop, I think for almost as long as I was allowed to, in terms of like age range. I was a morning group kid, and I loved Sibshop. I remember I would like always look forward to it a lot. Definitely the main thing, like Ursula said, was like having a space that was just kind of like for me or for us as a group. Especially I was the younger sibling, and I was born right before Audrey was diagnosed. So I never got to have kind of like it was nice because at the time I was old enough to like want that, to have like a space away from the craziness of my household sometimes. And also to have a space where I had and still have, very like great supportive people in my life who love Audrey. But it was nice I always felt a little bit guilty whenever I would express like frustrations with things that were going on in my house growing up, that like, Audrey, some of the needs that Audrey had, making it difficult for me to feel like I was getting everything I needed. And I felt very guilty expressing that, because I was and am very protective of Audrey. And Sibshop was a really great place to meet people who who I didn't feel were going to judge me for saying like, oh, I wish that I, had more time doing XYZ with my mom, but like Audrey was going to appointments all day or something, and not feeling like that was something that was bringing like guilt.
Excellent. Thank you, Margot. Thank you for sharing that, because I know from my experience as a provider, what you just said, you're not alone. And so sometimes hearing that out loud from somebody else can be powerful to people to hear. And I'm just curious, Annette or David, if any of what was said resonates with you or you agree with it.
Yeah,
giving you
so
a chance.
We actually are a trio of siblings. There's we have a younger sister as well who had a work function and so wasn't able to be here tonight. But what Margot was just saying sounds so much like things that I have heard her say growing up as Erin's younger sibling. So I certainly can reinforce that perspective secondhand from a younger sibling. As an older sibling, I think, I always sort of had the language and the awareness of what was going on. And in not too many years later, I was out of the house, but I certainly saw the frustrations and the strain that it put on our family. And Sibshops, I don't think it was around when I was there. If it was, I'm sorry that I missed out on it, but it sounds like a great avenue to express those, for have people come together who have all had that experience.
Excellent. Thanks, David. How about you, Annette?
For me, I do actually remember going to Sibshops one time when I was really little. I don't remember what age I was. I went with our middle brother, Michael. And I don't know why we stopped going. I can only imagine that it's because we were both really shy. So all of that was like scary for us maybe. But I do remember it being a really fun time. It was really great. And I do kind of wish that I would have stayed longer, because like our circumstances are so different, and sometimes we can feel like alone, like no one else understands what we're going through maybe. So meeting others with similar experiences would have been really helpful. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. And it sounds too like what Ursula is saying is that food was definitely a motivator, just as we all shared our food, how that motivates us. So I'm glad that that's a part of it. If anything, you can go for the snack. It's awesome. Well, Margot, you had shared with me that since you and Audrey were so close in age, that you went to the same middle school and high school. And so I'm curious if you could share a little bit about what that was like, kind of going to the same school.
Yeah, we overlapped for a couple years in middle school and a couple years in high school, which for the most part, I think was really cool. Because I really liked being able to randomly run into Audrey in the halls. And I also know it was really difficult, and I'm sure this is something that a lot of people will resonate with. It was really difficult to find a school that was a good fit for Audrey. She went to an elementary school that was like almost an hour away from our house for a while. So being able to have both of us at the same school was a really great circumstance for a family to be in terms of ease of transporting us to the same places every day. And it was nice to have, it was nice to be able to see her and know kind of where she was. Like I said, I was very, very protective over her. And I kind of liked knowing that she was in that close of proximity to me. It was kind of funny sometimes. She has, some vocal stems that are just very loud and high pitched. And sometimes I would be sitting in math class in high school and I could hear her from across the hall. And it was, at first it was a little bit nerve wracking when my classmates would react to it. But it was also kind of funny for me to be able to be oh, it's fine. That's just my sister. Yeah, overall, I really liked it. I thought it was a really fun experience, and also brought kind of a sense of normalcy to our house to have us be able to commute to and from the same place on the same buses every day, instead of knowing that Audrey was at some school on the other side of the city. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, you were sharing even you guys had the same bus because Audrey needed a special bus to accommodate her, and so they would just pick you up too. So you got door-to-door service, which was more than any of your classmates. That's cool. The upside. And the other thing I heard you say that I think is also pretty amazing is you would hear your sister and you could kind of normalize some of that for the other students. You're oh yeah, that's just my sister. It's, that's what she does. That is really cool. Thank you, Margot, for sharing that part of your story there. And Annette, I'm going to you next. And I know having a brother with autism who's got some very significant support needs has impacted really your relationships with others. And so I'm curious if you can just tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, of course. When Elijah was diagnosed with autism, I was about 13 or 14 years old. And so he had so many health issues at the time, and he was being hospitalized a lot, which required my parents to be with him. But then there were times where we would stay home to help out with Elijah, which meant I had to say no to plans or arrangements that I had as a child, like sleepovers or fun activities with friends. But I loved my brother so much that I never actually cared to miss out. I cared so much more to be involved in whatever he was going through than to attend a sleepover or a gathering / activities with friends. I always just wanted to be at the hospital with him when I could be, and any doctor's appointments that he had, I would try to tag along. I know that for Michael, our middle brother, it was a little bit different. I think because he is a middle child, so he did also feel like he missed out on activities for kids or sleepovers with the cousins maybe, or he even felt left out due to a lot of the attention that Elijah's health required. But for me, it must have just been a big sister instinct or my love as a big sister that made me not care on missing out and prefer to be where Elijah was. But as I got older, I was very reserved and cautious with meeting other people because I never wanted anyone to hurt Elijah. And so I never cared to meet many other people or make new friends that didn't already know me and Elijah or my family. So I was satisfied with just my family being enough company for me and the group of friends that I already had, because I was also very protective of him, kind of like Margot mentioned. I had always been super protective of Elijah and still am to this day. So he was always my biggest priority, which also meant I put off dating or ever having a romantic relationship with anybody. I had talked to my parents as a young girl about how I would wanted to adopt Elijah when they could no longer take care of him. And I feared that that would cause problems if I ever got married, or how could I trust my husband to accept Elijah and love him as much as I do.
Well, I know that actually, because we had a conversation earlier. So first I want to say, I remember you, Annette, when you were younger and coming into the appointments and asking your own questions and helping interpret things for your mom. Like from a very young age, you were exceptional. I just have to say that out loud because it's true.
Thank you.
And I also know you could, if you want to share that it has been somewhat, although you were hesitant to date and meet people, that it has turned out pretty okay for you.
Oh yeah. I'll actually touch on that a little bit in my next answer.
All right, I'll let you save it.
Okay.
Let you save it. Okay. We'll save that. That's a cliffhanger for those of you watching. So stick around so you can hear what goes on there. But next I want to go to David. And you had shared with me that you've been having some evolving conversations about when your mom, who's currently Aaron's guardian and caretaker, is no longer able to care for Aaron. And I know that's something that a lot of parents and siblings think about, and wondering if maybe you can share just a little about what you and your family have formally or maybe informally talked a little bit about when that time comes.
So yeah, there have been, I've been now out of the house and for more years than I care to admit here. But over all those years, regularly, not every year, but at regular intervals, we end up talking about, hey, what is the best situation for all of us as we all get older? And for many years, both my mom and Aaron have both said that they are very happy living together. But there have been challenges in some years, and other years it's gotten better. Erin's condition, and in terms of her medical needs and her degree of communicativity, has actually had several ups and downs over the course of our lifetimes. So those conditions change somewhat. The how many other kids are in the house and the circumstances that have changed. All through that, they have been happy to live together. I'll let both of them say more to that when it comes to them. But yeah, we're sort of all aware that there may come a time when that's not the case anymore. And so, yeah, we discuss regularly, what should we do in terms of, so all of us are sure that, we don't want Aaron to end up on the street, and we'll definitely make sure she's taken care of. But we've had suggestions about, okay, what would it mean to live more independently? What kind of circumstances are there for that? What's available? What's an appropriate time to try to make that kind of transition? That's a regular discussion, which there has not been a clear resolution at this point.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that, David. I know it's kind of can be some sensitive questions to talk about. And I know Erin's preference strongly right now, when I talked to her earlier, was to stay with her mom. And I know Erin's stepped back a little bit from the screen, but I think that's still the case. Erin, is that right? You want to stay living with your mom as long as possible? Yes. And I know you guys have a great relationship. But right, those are some deep conversations, and thanks for sharing with us just kind of how you guys are continuing to think about it. And I know, David, you were saying earlier that you've, talked to your mom and you'll support her. You'll make sure Erin's always taken care of, which I think that's the unique thing about siblings, is that relationship starts early on and is enduring longer, and an important one. So thanks for sharing that. I will say there was a question from YouTube land from someone about Sibshops. So Ursula, I was wondering if you might be able to answer that. It says, if your diagnosed child is covered with financial assistance, would the cost for Sibshops be covered? Do you know the answer to that, Ursula?
Yeah, so it's essentially, or in summary, that it would be a conversation that we would have. It'd be kind of a pay what you can, and that there are scholarships available and whatnot. We would just, during the registration period, there is a question asking if you need financial assistance, and then we would have a conversation about what that would look like.
Great, yeah, and it sounds like the question also is, when do the next group of classes start?
Yes. So as it looks like this person saw, our final one of the year is June 3rd, and that's for our oldest group, our 10 to 14-year-olds. And it would be a very difficult one just to kind of jump in because it's more of a end of the year celebration without a whole lot of content. But they will start up again in the fall. So our 6 to 9-year-old group will start probably the second weekend in September, because I believe the first weekend in September is Labor Day. And then our 10 to 14-year-old group will start in October. So they alternate. And we should have registrations ready to roll around July. So if you are interested in getting on the email address, or sorry, if you're interested in getting in that invite list, you can email the email address that's included on the page that I think you're looking at, that Jennifer sent the link out to, but it's just sibshops@seattlechildrens.org. And I'm currently managing that. So I am happy to follow up with you and make sure that you get on that list so you have all the links to register when that's ready in July.
Excellent. Thank you, Ursula. I'm so glad you're here to provide some of that detailed information, which is important. Great. So now I've got some like a question that I'm going to pose to all the siblings who are attending tonight. And the first one I have is, what was the greatest impact of having a sibling with autism that has very significant needs? And David, I think I'm going to start with you first. If you can think, what was the greatest impact for you in having a sibling as wonderful as Aaron?
So it certainly provides a window into a world that I wouldn't otherwise have. You know, I was big into academics. I actually thought for a while about going into being academia as a career, and even now I work in computer science in an area with lots of sort of high-powered, fast-talking, fast-thinking people, and it's just very interesting to have interactions that are very different than that, and to see some insight into a world of someone who enjoys very different things and has very different sorts of thoughts. I'd say that's one of the, so there's certainly lots of things that are hard. I have to worry about things like, oh, I will have a sibling my whole life who has significant needs, and when I was a child, that took away from some time, and from my sister even more than me. But on the positive side, I get insight into this whole different world that I think I otherwise wouldn't have.
That's awesome, David. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so true. A lot of people will ask me, working with just individuals who have autism, and, oh, how can you do that? And it's like, but wait, these are like some really amazing people, and I'm exposed to things that I wouldn't be otherwise. And so I think there's a lot of truth to what you said. So thanks for sharing that. How about for you, Annette? What do you think the greatest kind of impact of Elijah as a brother?
For me, Elijah has taught me patience and has also taught me how to love. His significant support needs have made me become aware of people's needs and be empathetic. I grew up wanting to go into healthcare and helping out wherever I could and however I could. So I went to school and became a nurse assistant and a caregiver, which is how I'm able to work with Elijah at home. And I also started working at Seattle Children's, where I actually met the love of my life. I worked in the emergency department, where I met my now fiance, who was working with kids with special needs and autism and mental health problems. So I was really impressed with this man, because how could somebody love kids or people with special needs so much, not being related to them? So for all of this, I am so thankful.
And as we were talking a little bit about this earlier, I think you kind of said before, like how you were little protective of Elijah and meeting people, and I think he was even like, "Hey, man, give me a chance."
Yeah, yes, he did. Yeah, it took a while for them to be like introduced to each other, but his name is Sergio, my fiance. I had talked to him about Elijah and how he has autism, which I would never ever tell my coworkers before because I was just so private with Elijah, and I didn't just share that with anybody. It was like something special for me to share that with somebody. But when we started dating and he would come around to the house and he met Elijah was kind of iffy, who's this man? Who's this other guy that's taking away my sister's attention? But then Elijah started to ask him for bubble tea with his little pictures. Just like one example, this is what his pictures look like on his little binder. And so this is apple juice, but he has a little bubble tea picture and he would always just grab it and give it to him. And I think that's how I won him over. Elijah gave him that chance. He was like, if you give me what I want, I'll like you. Yeah.
Again, love through food, all, connection through food. Food's a great uniter. And
yes.
That is such a great story. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I know you're an amazing person and you deserve all that happiness. So
thank you.
Very cool. And people got to hear a little bit of what that cliffhanger was. Very exciting. Well, how about you, Margot? How about for you? What was the greatest impact of having an amazing sibling like Audrey?
Yeah, I think having a sibling like Audrey, I think growing up, especially because she and I were raised by a single mom who is amazing. I know you know her.
Yes.
I felt a lot of responsibility or pressure to be like the easy child, to like lessen the, I guess, stress that my mom had to deal with. And I think something that Audrey has kind of gradually taught me, Audrey and a couple years of therapy, is that there is no like, I guess having needs is kind of like a default human thing. And it's not something that you have to be scared to like express or have. You are allowed to like lean on people for things you need, in the same way that I would never in a million years resent Audrey for any of the things that she needs help with ever in her whole life. I don't have to internalize that kind of sense of, I guess, over like independence. Because if I am so happy and like joyful to be able to spend time with her despite her having a higher level of needs, then why should anybody else feel like they can't express their needs?
There you go. Yeah, you said it so well. Ursula, I see you doing the universal clapping in a sensory friendly way. I don't know if you have anything to contribute to that other than a big handshake or a big
No, I appreciate you, Sibs, being here on the screen. I have these notes that I totally got nervous and forgot to say a few things. And you guys just did a wonderful job of hitting on some of the points that I meant to about feeling left out and needing to be the easier one and things like that. And also just the degree of empathy that siblings grow up with. And in doing this for 20 years, it's been interesting even just to see the capacity for empathy even change in the kiddos that we have as part of our group. And yes, they might not have the language to describe their brother or sister like a diagnosis, but their ability to describe what they like to joyfully do together and how they help each other and things like that. And that degree of protectiveness, but maybe not even needing as much protectiveness as they did 10 years ago, just because communities have changed and become more accepting. But yeah, I think the biggest impact, I just want to kind of echo a little bit of Margot of like, again, all the feelings that you are experiencing are valid and it's okay to voice them. And it's okay to be curious and ask questions and need more information. But yes, it's, again, it's kind of interesting to see as we've had kiddos over a span of time. There are some kids who just start only feeling comfortable sharing the joys of having a sibling. And then after some time building the comfort that they are able to to speak to some of those more challenging things, or like, well, sometimes, they give themselves a little bit of room to share some of those frustrations. And I think that's really, it's such a great, it almost is magical. Not that I want kids to have hard things that they're experiencing, but it feels magical once they're able to share those things as part of the group.
That is awesome, Ursula. Thanks for sharing that. There is another question from YouTube land. I think it's Natasha who's sharing about her 5-year-old son who's autistic and non-speaking, and he's an only child, but he's going to be merged with another family, merged with another family that has 2 girls who are 10 and 12, and wondering if there's all of you siblings here, or even Ursula, have any advice for a situation like that, where you're kind of all of a sudden, not only do you have siblings, but you have a special sibling. He's got special needs. And then there was a separate question about Sibshops for cousins, which I'm also curious if that happens, or it has to be biologic siblings or even step siblings. I guess the definition of a family has really changed over time. But I don't know if any of you have any advice, or Ursula, if you have what's the cutting line on sibs? Is it biologic siblings or?
No, we are willing to have families define what siblings means to them. And I think we've actually had arrangement like that. And I think it was a family they still felt removed enough from the situation that the experience didn't necessarily speak to those cousins. So they didn't continue, but we would be willing to explore that. It would definitely be that they'd be invited and welcomed.
That's great. Very inclusive. And I think it is a unique situation sometimes when you merge families and they don't have the history together. So that's certainly a journey that may be challenging. I do have some resources sharing that I'll share at the end, or I guess we can even pull it up right now, that has some books and websites about talking to your child about autism. Initially, we put this list together thinking about the autistic individual themselves, but certainly the content applies to siblings, and even potentially supplying some words and concepts that they could then use and share as they talk with peers about their sibling with autism. And the list is divided by age. So those younger siblings, school age, teens, tweens, and even for parents. And then there are also some sibling-specific books that have come recommended. Thank you to participants, Margot, for sharing one of them, Rules from 2006 by Cynthia Lord, and also putting out there that is from 2006. So some of the words may be a little bit not 2023, but the concepts I think are there. And as I was reading through comments in Amazon land, they definitely felt it was still relevant. So those are some options of ways to maybe prepare your family as they merge together to talk and have the words. Thanks for sharing that one there. All right, back to our participants. I've got another great question. I'm curious to hear what you all have to share. And I guess it's advice. What advice you would give to other siblings who may be watching or starting this journey as siblings, either as step siblings or biologic siblings. And let's see, we started David last time. Annette, how about you go first?
Although, for me, I think, although everyone's situations are very different, I would say just to not worry. It's not the end of the world, and everything will be okay in the end. There might be really difficult times that might seem like impossible to get through, but there is always a silver lining to the situation.
That's so well said. It sounds like Elijah's having a lot to say in the background there, but maybe not much he wants to contribute to us. Is that?
No, just in the back, the other side of the computer.
Okay. All right. He's chilling. Excellent. Thanks. Margot, how about you? Would there be any advice you might give to other siblings?
Yeah, I think this is a sentiment that's been going around this group a lot tonight, but the sense of, being protective over the people you want to bring into your life because of how protective you feel over your sibling. I know that when I was younger, like middle high school especially, I would be really nervous about bringing people to my house because Audrey didn't always love the sensory experience of wearing clothes all the time. And, sometimes her different stims or self-regulatory behaviors could be a little bit jarring to people who aren't used to them. And there was this kind of double feeling of like, I'm 13, and if someone has a weird experience at my house, that's going to be the end of my social life. And also, I don't want anybody to have any sort of like negative feelings or judgments about my sister, because even if I think what she's doing is weird, you don't get to think what she's doing is weird because you don't get it. So I think the best piece of like advice I could give is like, definitely appreciate that protective instinct and listen to your gut, but also if people are demonstrating that they are there for the long run and they care about your sibling, you can believe them. One of my best friends that I've had since starting middle school has the, I think, best success rate in terms of Christmas gifts for Audrey of anybody in our family. And I don't know if this is something you guys can relate to, but it's really hard to Christmas shop for my sibling because we don't know what she likes. But my best friend somehow does, and it's all random stuff she gets from thrift stores. So when there's people who show that they want to be involved in your sibling's life, let them.
That is great advice. Annette, I see you nodding your head there. I think, is that real? Is that like, you agree?
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. Everything that you said is perfect. And I agree. It seems like Elijah already knows what he likes and nothing new is needed, but you want to give something new. Maybe just a new playlist of different music, but you never know.
I know, I feel bad getting her M&Ms for Christmas every single year, but she's always going to like it and she always gets them. So.
Exactly, yeah.
How about for you, David? Was any advice you'd give other siblings?
So actually the last question that came in from the public chat really resonated with me. I was a little bit afraid since I had, Aaron had come into my life when I was older, and then I was only, and I'm older. I think I'm the oldest sibling here, and I've been out of the house for a long time. But that was in some sense precisely my situation about what these two new step siblings are going to have. They are early teens, and suddenly a new child comes into their life with a totally different set of needs. And I remember I was trying to think about what I would say, giving this advice to this parent who's bringing the autistic child in. And I remember at that time, I didn't feel, I don't know if my mom would agree with this, maybe she would disagree with this. I don't think I felt resentment of Erin. She was sort of a force of nature, but I felt resentment of my mom. Like I remember there was some time when Erin had scrawled all over with marker all over my computer, which was like the most important thing to me in my life at the time. And I was just livid, but I was mostly livid at my mom for like making this happen. And so maybe the thing I would point out to this parent who's blending this family is, she might be very worried about the children resenting each other, but I think she might need to be prepared for the children resenting their parents as well, or more so, at least based on my own anecdotal experience.
David, that's such amazing insight. I saw Ursula nod her head, so she may have heard similar kinds of things amongst siblings. I don't know, Ursula, do you have?
Yeah, I think this is probably advice for like the whole family unit, and it will kind of hit on these questions too of, and it is about, it's often that sibling who has a special need feels very, very connected to the parent. And often I think they're seen as a dyad in themselves. And the sibling since the neurotypical sibling can feel like an other and that dyad a little bit. So just sometimes it's about protecting physical space for all the siblings in the home, that we are respectful of each of our families and members' items equally. That I feel like Margot might remember this coming up many times in Sibshops, but the amount of times that things that are very important to us get destroyed by our siblings in a very innocent sort of way, but it is devastating. So just kind of thinking about, as this family blends, like how can we protect some physical spaces and autonomy, and as well as autonomy for these siblings that are coming in, but also just thinking about protecting like the roles and responsibilities of the household too, and in a way that I know it may feel impossible to have equality within the household, but just thinking about rules and expectations and how can we have conversations to make things feel equal, knowing that again at different developmental ages we're all going to define fairness in a different way, but just being able to talk about those things and again check-ins. And so my greatest advice is just it's okay to be vocal and ask for what you need, and to be frustrated and express that frustration and ask for what you might need, because as an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old or whatnot, you can't always advocate for yourself with your sibling, but you can advocate to your adults and ask for what you need.
Thank you, Ursula, for providing that. And Margot, I know you had also said that there was a point in time too for you and Audrey where you felt like things weren't fair with food. You want to share a little bit about that? I think that relates.
Sure. I remember this is when I was like 5, 6, 7. So Audrey was like 7, 8, 9. And I was noticing for the first time that when Audrey, for example, decided that the only thing she wanted to eat for dinner for an entire week was McDonald's chicken nuggets or bagel bites or something, then that was fine. But when I decided that the only thing I wanted to eat for dinner for a week was McDonald's chicken nuggets, suddenly my mom had a problem with it. And that felt extremely unfair to me. And of course now I have some more perspective on the situation, but that was definitely something as a kid that I was like, it doesn't seem fair that Audrey gets to decide that she gets to have as many M&Ms as she wants after dinner, but I only get to have this number that my mom gives me.
Annette, did you have a similar experience? I saw you smiling. I don't know.
I just think that it's funny because because of our middle child brother, because he was the one that would feel that way about everything that Elijah got or didn't get. But for me, I don't know why. I just never cared. I was like, if Elijah wants this, we'll give him the world and that's it. But Michael, he was always like, oh, if Elijah gets to do this, if Elijah's not going to school, I'm not going to school. Or if Elijah gets this iPad, I get an iPad too. But they love each other.
Well, I know, David, you had shared with me before, even though there's these like rocky times and things may not always, in the moment, they might be really tough. Like you get through it.
That's absolutely true. Yep.
Yeah. So sometimes it's harder to see, but I think as since you are further along in your journey of life, that you may have been able to look back and see some of that. And I know, I know your mom.
There have been ups and downs, and there have been times, certainly when I was 13, and sometimes afterward when I was resentful or unhappy, or I've seen the situation get harder or easier. But yeah, the whole family is still together. We're planning on going to New York. We were on a sailing trip together, actually over spring break, all on a little boat, and still talk to each other afterward.
Yes.
So it worked out.
Yes. Yeah. So I think my message maybe to some of the parents, and Anita, you can totally speak in here if you want, as you were, David spoke about how maybe he was mad at you for a certain time when certain things happened. In the end, the love of the family kind of persists. And I know, Anita, you take such good care of Aaron, and you never want that to be a burden for siblings, but the siblings also want to make sure that, Aaron is always taken care of, and her needs are provided for. So I don't know, Anita.
Yeah. So I've been blessed with amazing children, 3 amazing children. And they've all rallied around Aaron and me raising Aaron. I raised Aaron mostly as a single parent. So having my children's support is like just means the world to me. And I wish everyone could have that type of family who are there for them through thick and thin, because it makes us all appreciate one another more. And we have these very strong bonds that allows us to do things like spend 10 days on a sailboat together. And we vacation together all the time. And not everyone is that fortunate to have that level of support in their family. So I wish that for everyone, and am very thankful that it's that's the way it is in my family. But I have to say to David, I do not specifically remember the computer incident with him. Right?
Really, it was more stronger impression for me.
Right. So I know there were a number of things, but I do not remember.
No, I marched out. I demanded that you replace the computer. I remember.
Oh wow! Okay. Whoa, was that your first computer? No,
that was the Apple IIc.
Okay. All right.
He remembers exactly which one.
It didn't get replaced, by the way, in case anyone's worried about that. I didn't get that demand. One thing that I also wanted to say, since we talked a little bit more about, my perspective being about maybe what happens when people get older, is that even though my mom and Aaron have chosen to continue to live together, one of the things I see is that there are lots of programs that keep Aaron doing stuff independent of my mom. She goes to this place called Aaron's Place 2 or 3 times a week. Jobs, part-time jobs that she does. So there's some difference between, there's some spectrum in between saying, all right, I will be tied at the hip and just live 24 hours a day with this kid for the rest of my life, and shipping them off and saying, all right, go live independently. I'll come visit you once a month. There's a lot of room in between.
Yeah.
Very
Excellent. One other thing I wanted to throw out there too, Annette, I was thinking about you and how in a lot of ways you were very, selfless. Maybe that's not the right word, but the one thing I remember, and you said it to me as we talked the other day, and I think it was so true, but I think it might be helpful for others to hear, was part of what I think was unique about you is that you were always very curious and interested and wanted to know and learn a lot about what was going on, and had your own set of questions for me as you were growing up. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do remember ever since Elijah was born, the moment he was born, he had issues with I think it was feeding. He couldn't eat, or he would eat, but everything would come right out. So he was hospitalized that first week or 2. And so I signed myself up to be there. And ever since that first hospitalization, I was always curious, and I would ask my mom. Actually, I remember it started ever since she was pregnant, because we had known from ultrasounds that Elijah's head was abnormal for his body. It was too big. So there was just a lot of things that my mom would share with me in a very in a way where I would understand it as a child, but I would ask more and she would explain more, which is when I started to just always ask her, and then ask the doctors where during the doctor's appointments. And I just always tried to be involved so that I could learn how to take care of him in the future. I just had my plan set. Yeah.
Well, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing, Annette. Thanks, Margot. Thanks, David. Thanks, Aaron, Anita, and Ursula. We're at 8:00, which means we are going to bring our conversation to an end. But I want to thank you all for participating. I want to thank our audience for listening. We'll put in the chat a survey, those who watched all the way to the end here. Want to give us any feedback, some ideas. We really appreciate it as we continue this conversation and future conversations. But I want to thank you all for tonight. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Jen. Okay. Okay, hold on. We're gonna wait till she. Okay, you can go if you want to.